Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. I'm so glad to be back with you. I will start with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence or hatred or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice. There are further disclaimers in the description below. So glad to be back with you here today on Wednesday. We're in this full, a stage two of the launch of World War III going on here. I'll start by saying thank you so much to everybody who supports the channel. You make it happen, and I'm so grateful to be able to bring the news to you here as I kind of decipher and connect dots. And so let's just jump in. What I want to talk about first here is I think actually I want to start with NASA. Very different than everything going on with the worldwide escalation of World War III. NASA announcing that this Saturday, when we're going to have this pretty major solar eclipse on the 14th, on Saturday, major astrological day, things going on to kind of escalate, intensive. Problems, all kinds of things with this big day. Well, NASA is launching rockets on Saturday during the solar eclipse into what they call the rare Ring of Fire solar eclipse. So they're going to launch multiple rockets into the suborbital system here, 50 miles into the ionosphere. Okay, basically reaching the electric atmosphere because we are an electric universe, and it's so interesting what they know about the electric universe is that it is literally how we operate here on Earth, and they try to hide that news from you. We've got Artemis mission going up, SpaceX hugely involved with the colonization of the moon, and now when we're going to have this solar eclipse, they're going to throw up three massive rockets into the ionosphere. For what purpose? We don't know exactly. They're talking about the Ring of Fire that will be shown through this eclipse, the annulus ring, as it's called. And it shows something called Bailey's beads, which is beads of light um, around the moon, and where there becomes like a diamond ring that shows around the moon. And so I'm trying to figure this all out. I don't know exactly what's going on. I wanted to bring it to your attention. It's going through like the northwest down uh, to like Arizona in the morning. I think in Oregon you'll be able to see it at like 9:13 a.m. in Oregon, and then down through Nevada, down into Arizona. Going to be a very interesting display of this eclipse, but they're just throwing up massive amounts of rockets into the sky to interfere with it. Why are they doing that? I don't know. I would love to see your comments in the description below. If you could put comments, I would love to see them. And so I also want to, before I jump into the major news to do with everything, Israel, Ukraine, as I'm calling it, the creation of the second step into World War III. I still want to mention some great things. Kari Lake launching last night her incredible Senate run. Totally into her. They call her Trump in heels. She is who I had hoped might be Trump's VP, person, but no, she's going full bore for going for Kirsten Cinema's run in Arizona, and basically she started her launch last night saying, "Let's put Joe Biden on an Amtrak back to Delaware. Let's put him, on a plane to China or Ukraine, or maybe he even wants to go onto a plane to Iran." Great comments. They had Trump videoing in. What Kari Lake had to say is that she'll be the most pro-American senator in the United States Senate. America first policies all the way. She says that Hamas was emboldened by the Obama-Biden deals that they did. creating of course, the Iran nuclear deal. uh, we need to remember that Obama, when especially in 2012, he launched a massive campaign to get as many Muslims as he could into the U.S. Government administration, his administration, and into government positions. He launched a massive campaign. I've talked about it in past videos where they hired thousands and thousands of Muslims into key positions in the administration, into governments in states, everything that they could do to put Muslims in control here in the United States, much like we saw and we've been seeing in the UK and across the EU. But what else Kari Lake had to say is that she's worried that the attacks are going to happen here, that we were seeing being instigated by what's going on in Israel, in the Gaza. That there's an escalation here. We're seeing it already in Dearborn, Michigan, where I talked about in my last video, massive Hezbollah staging ground there in Dearborn, Michigan. And what do we have already happening is huge amounts of, protests, pro Hamas, pro Palestinian, all of it. And in Dearborn, Michigan, exactly where the Unit 910 that Todd Bensman has been laying out, and I've linked to my last video, I'll link it again, where they already know, and the FBI is already working with what is the Hezbollah in the United States factions, Unit 910, to do with the biggest Hamas families in Lebanon, all of it. And so, anyway, the Kari Lake launch was great last night. She says basically that whatever MSM says, mainstream media says, it is the opposite. It is the opposite of what they say, and to know that. She says that God placed us here at this most pivotal moment to save the United States. And so I support Kari Lake for Senate big time. And I wanted to, before I move into, getting into the roots of what we're seeing coming out here of the new second stage of World War III here in Israel. I wanted to bring up, the Gog Magog end times war. A lot of people are talking about it. Is this the beginning of the Gog Magog? And I'll just put out a few things. On Friday, I'm going to be doing a interview with a pastor, my friend Pastor Jeff, getting into the intricacies of what is Gog Magog in Revelation, in Ezekiel 38. We'll dive into there and talk about, how does this relate to what's going on now. But I do want to mention this, when we look at Ezekiel 38 in the Bible, the prophet Ezekiel out of Solomon's temple, he was a priest in Solomon's temple. Basically, his visions, what he saw was, multiple things, and one of them was the Valley of Hammon Gog, and it sounds so much like Gaza. I think ultimately they really just want to put probably a United States or a New World Order military base there in Gaza. When Netanyahu has come out and said we're gonna flatten it to the ground, Gaza will exist no more, as they're killing, we have now close to 20 Americans dead. We have something like 12 UN operatives there in Gaza dead. Very interesting. Much more I'm going to say about that coming up in the next few minutes. But basically, in Gaza, is this the Valley of Hammon Gog, right? Is this what they are preempting, Luciferian style, to basically create the graves in Israel for the Gog? Okay, give the Gog or the invaders, at the end times war, there is supposed to be the Gog Magog, and Gog was usually from Magog in Ezekiel, that there was basically hordes of what are the invaders of the reinstated Israel, and that they are basically killed, and that there are massive amounts of graves, okay, in this what they call the Valley of Hammon Gog east of the sea, right? And that's what Gaza is. And this is supposed to last for 7 months, and then they create the city of Hamonah, and this is supposedly to do with Persia, Libya, and Ethiopia, as far as I've been able to understand. And then after that, we see the restoration of Solomon's temple, the third temple, and all of this. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that that is a lot of what people are talking about, but it's going to keep increasing. We'll get into it. But what I want to talk about now is, what are we seeing with what's going on in Israel? We're seeing actually hugely a massive amount of resistance to propaganda. We're seeing people really denouncing a lot of the fake media that's coming out about what's happened. And we're seeing really big players like Joel Skousen and and the guy who's so important in writing all of the uh, the anti-bio warfare stuff. So many people coming out and saying that what's going on there isn't real. It doesn't pass the smell test. And I'm gonna get into that now. So let's look into what we have. So Joel Skousen of the Skousen report, I'll link it below. He's saying that about 80% of troops were removed from the Gaza area. This is the southern IDF massive military installation. That after what was Juniper Oak, the U.S. Israeli wargaming situation where they basically played out this whole thing next to Gaza, and that a lot of the footage that we're seeing coming out is from that. But basically, after that, we saw 80% of the troops removed from the Gaza area, the IDF. They were removed specifically so that they could, for entertainment purposes only, be able to, in secret, be able to carry out what's happening now. Israel has been one of the most massive nations to carry out false flags. Um, so huge, and I'm going to get into and delineate. I'll give you a little timeline on that. But we also see that right before the music festival that happened there next to Gaza, where the people were killed, we see that music festival was only moved to that location a few days before this went down. And then we also see that that the fence, the massive fence, that's the hugest, most elaborate AI tech fence around Gaza, go dark and be shut down. That we have Israeli troops basically letting Hamas through, letting them go into the settlements in surrounding Gaza and do whatever the slaughter that they did, and that is all still not proven or seen on any kind of video. Okay. Biden says he saw the video today. He comes out and says he saw the video of the beheading of the babies, etc. We still have not seen any of this video, but we see a lot of fake video. Okay. We also have Biden coming out and saying yesterday that he met with Golda Meir, um, right before the Yom Kippur War. I mean, it's so crazy. And she wanted to have a photograph with him, and she said, "Our secret weapon is we have nowhere else to go." Okay, that is uh, the uh, the ongoing false flag that is Joe Biden's regime in creating the second entry into World War III. And so now I want to move into what is the plan here. We're going to have basically the rollout of false flag attacks. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in the United States. It's going to happen in Europe, and they're going to create this, Islam versus Judaism, and Christians in the mix. We're already seeing that they're labeling Christians who support Israel as being white supremacist Zionists, right? So they're already pushing that narrative. It's every narrative that that supports them. All they want to do is have a narrative where they will um, they will create whatever factions can go against each other to create this problem reaction solution, okay, where they create the end times here. It's a jumping the shark to create a fake end times, a Luciferian one world order where they want to unleash the Abrahamic religions all against each other, plus the atheists, to then use massive amounts of uh, uh, genocide against everybody. Okay, to bring in um, a Luciferian god, and then have the one world order. Okay, and so that is the game plan. But let's look at what is the history behind this. Okay, we have to look at what has gone on with Israel with false flags, and Israel with the highest technology in the world, the massive amounts of cyber tech. They are the number one. If you can get a job with them, especially in their unit 8200, then you are golden, okay, for jobs forever in the tech world, and especially the AI world. And to say that the fence went down in Gaza, the massive controlled sensor fence where they know everything that's going on, to say that that went down in an attack, in a cyber attack, is baloney. It's not possible. Okay, but you know, basically, what we're looking at is the next level. While we hear that Egypt already sent huge messaging to Jerusalem, Mossad, saying that there's an attack coming. Cairo intelligence is telling you that Hamas is planning this attack. They were able to hear about it and find out about it. But the thing is that the call is coming from inside the house, right? And so let's look at a bit of a history here. I think that's one thing that's important to understand is that the Azov battalion in 2015 was known to be using Israeli Tavor rifles, okay, in Ukraine. That Kolomoisky funding the Ukrainian Donbass coup, right, that went on the Maidan Revolution, Soros funded money with Antony Blinken, who's going to Israel tomorrow and then going to Jordan on his way out, right? The Jordan kings put in there by intelligence operations. Well, the Azov battalion has been using Israeli rifles and guns. Okay, the Azov Nazi battalion in Ukraine has been using Israeli Tabor rifles, funded by Igor Kolomoisky, who is a Jewish Israeli Cyprus Ukrainian. Okay, multiple um, resident of all these countries, and that it's all connected to all of this Israeli intelligence mechanisms. And so we get into, I want to talk about some of the Unit 8200 out of Israel and all of their elite um, um, uh, electronic systems, all of their elite systems that they have in play that basically give all of intelligence across the world, especially to do with multiple subterfuge operations going on worldwide. And so we get Unit 8200, the elite cyber defense squad located. They put them in Palestinian neighborhoods like in Isawiya. They have the NSO group, okay, which is created the Pegasus technology. And the Pegasus technology is where they can use cell phones to track everyone. They use it to track every person in Palestine. Okay, they track every person in the Gaza Strip. using Pegasus. They know everything that's going on with every single person, all right, in Palestine. And they also, what has become the NSO group out of Unit 8200, that is specialized in carrying out these operations. So they cover dissidents, activists, journalists, so many people rolled up by Unit 8200. The elite that come out of IDF are brought into 8200 if they have the aptitude to go into cyber and electronics and engineering. And so we get Pegasus was used by bin Salman, okay, in Saudi Arabia, in being able to track Jamal Khashoggi, right? And they used it to capture Jamal Khashoggi and what happened to him. And then they have another company called Circles that came out of 8200 that was used for physical location of anyone in the world using only their phone number, that they don't have to hack your phone. It's geofencing and they can find you no matter what. And then there is their company called Celebrite, which is a phone cracking software and data recovery system where they can use that to basically get into anybody's devices. This is all in Haifa, outside of Tel Aviv, where they have the second Silicon Valley. And so when we look at Netanyahu coming to the United States last week and or 2 weeks ago, meeting with Musk for whatever is coming here, with now, of course, the EU is attacking X for spreading disinformation. Well, he also went and met with Kissinger, with Henry Kissinger, who just turned 100. They always seem to live a long time. Henry Kissinger orchestrating the Yom Kippur War. We see the rollout of this second leg of World War III in Israel with Hamas on the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, which was staged by Kissinger. And now Kissinger is meeting up with Netanyahu, okay, a couple of weeks ago, right before this kicks off. And people need to understand that Netanyahu is his mentor was Menachem Begin. And Menachem Begin considered himself, he was the prime minister after Golda Meir, considered himself to be the father of terror, his self-known, he named himself the father of terror. And it's because there's been so many false flags that have come out of Israel to create the problem reaction solution that they want. And what I'm saying here is that there is a behind the scenes elite that is creating this scenario, okay, to walk us into war. They're using AI, they're using the media, the propaganda, the Ed Bernays style propaganda that came out, you know, created World War II, basically the three world wars they wanted to roll out to create a massive problem reaction solution that ends up in a one world government where they basically set all of the Abrahamic religions against each other, release the atheists, okay, and the people, just the nihilists, okay, and create a scenario of chaos. And they're doing that in this country already. But I think we should maybe take a look at somebody who I want to mention here before I might be running out of power here. Strangely, my computer's doing strange things and the power is going really low, really fast. But I want to bring up Rob Malley. Rob Malley, he was the former Iran, the envoy, special envoy to Iran that Biden had put in place. Special envoy to Iran who was called back and put under scrutiny by the Justice Department back in June of this year. Okay, this is after Operation Juniper Oak, where the United States military did joint operations with the IDF and Israel in the area close to Gaza, with a lot of the feed that we're seeing in the propaganda news coming out of what they did then versus what is reality now, as they continue to decimate the Gaza area, planning to obliterate it, okay, take the land, and create, I think, a fake Gog Magog. And we'll talk about that on Friday. Tomorrow I'll be back and we'll talk about more specific things. But when we look at Rob Malley, okay, he is under suspicion for participation with the Hamas Israeli attack, and he was the special envoy to Iran put in by Biden. He had been around ever since before Barack Obama, developing Hamas, developing the situation in Iran to do with Hezbollah, the funding in Iran, everything to do with what is the massive amounts of money for the Iran nuclear deal. Okay, which is why President Trump put a stop to it immediately. This guy, Rob Malley, placed on leave in June, and he is accused of sharing classified material with Tehran, and the Department of Justice has refused to share this information with Congress. And so, what does this mean? We have Representative Darrell Issa out of California saying that Mali was an asset for Iran to help and approve um, the situation that's going on now. Um, Basically, Mali was able to get past the sanctions on Iran and release about $80 billion that's in sanctions to Iran. That has been released and undercover and not been talked about. That Rob Malley has been responsible for in his position as special envoy to Iran under Joe Biden. Okay, and this has happened since 2021. And so we look at, the $1.7 billion in cash and the drone delivery by Barack Obama to Iran, the creation of the Gog Magog, right? It's a creation of give them enough of all the firepower they need to create this World War III scenario. We have Erin Smart's memo. Basically, she was working for the Office of Personal Security and Suitability. Also, the State Department Bureau of Diplomatic Security. Basically, she was in charge of saying, are these people, suitable for office? And she put out a memo saying that Rob Malley's actions present very serious security concerns, and supposedly an FBI investigation. You're right, right? And so Malley's three top aides were found out to have very active ties with secretive influence operations in Tehran's foreign ministry, and that we have as advisor, Malley was advisor to Iranian policy under Barack Obama. And what we have, remember under Barack Obama, as I said before, he specifically hired consultants to hire thousands and thousands of Muslims to be part of his administration, part of deep state DC during his reign there in DC. And so that has always been the Muslim Brotherhood strategic plan, was to get as many operatives into the United States government. And as I believe, I think it was Joel Skousen pointed out, the Muslim Brotherhood's credo is to have a grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within, and with the intention of elimination of Western civilization. And so basically, we have that Rob Malley, the Iran special envoy under Biden, has basically put forth that Hezbollah, Hamas, they are charitable organizations. We're on social terms with them in dealings, and that even Barack Obama had to drop Mali for a couple, like a year. Back when he was running for president in 2008, he dropped Mali for a while, but then brought him back as his special advisor to Iran. And then Biden brings him back full bore as the envoy to Iran. Okay, so that's Rob Malley. And so when we look at all of this going on since 1979 of Netanyahu becoming the mentee of Menachem Begin, who considers himself to be the father of terror, self-named, we get, of course, the Likud party founded there in 1977, and we get in 1979 Netanyahu um, basically saying that the war on terror is very good for Israel and the United States, basically from getting United States money to Israel. And he said that the war on terror doctrine resulted in the U.S. military and intelligence to create, neutralize, fragment, train, and activate um, extremist groups, factions, etc. So this is what we have. We have the reality where it was Israel under Menachem Begin in cahoots with George H.W. Bush and all of the CIA at that time and Mossad, creating these factions of Islamicists. Okay, because the reality is that the that the Jewish people have never had any Arab wars or conflicts, okay, with Arab populations until the 20th century, okay? There was never an Arab Israeli conflict or Arab Jewish conflict. They were usually on the same side, or they were, we have the massive, uh, massive amounts of Turks and the Ukrainians, the Southern Russians, the Tatars, uh, basically converting to Judaism. All right, back to Moses. Back in the day, right? Moses, God said to Moses, "Don't take the Arab Rev with you. Okay, don't take them on your escape from Egypt, because the Arab Rev are the merchants of sin, and they will just create mayhem." And what did Moses do? He said, "I'm going to take them anyway, God." And God was like, "Well, good luck, because they're going to create a ton of mayhem." And that's where I get into what I've said for so long about the Radhanites, about Cartel Babylon, and the creation of the economy of sin, and the using of the fake narrative of what has become Cartel Babylon, using bloodlines, moving out into families across Europe and then into southern Russia, Ukraine, to create this ongoing banksterism that has now become this World War III scenario. I know it's a little squirrely today, but let's look at, I don't know, just the history of Israeli false flags. And I'll just be clear here. I am not for anybody. I don't believe in holy wars. Okay. I believe in humanity and humanity's freedom from cartel Babylon and from centuries and millennia of human control by information control, controlling the energy, controlling the technology, controlling um, how we live our lives, where we go, our energy, all of the incredible human um, ingenuity that has created modern society that they are attacking and trying to constantly kill humans. I'm against everybody doing that. Okay, that is the elite billionaires who are doing it. And it doesn't matter what side they're on, what religion they claim, it's against humanity. I'm pro humanity. I don't have any side in this fight. But I do think we see an interesting history of who's behind so much of these false flags that go on. And it doesn't mean that the people aren't dying. Of course, they're dying. They need dead bodies in order to get the money, in order to get the constant war machine going and continuing. And so when we look at the history of, um, the leaders of Israel, who I would put forth, and so many have before me, come out of this Radhanite past. This desire to create a one world government out of war and mayhem. It gets back into way back to 10th century. It gets back further than that. And what I'm going to just put forth here is a little bit of a history of false flags coming out of Israel. The first one that I know of is the 1954 Lavon affair. This is where they recruited out of Israel, Israeli intelligence recruited 6 Egyptian Jews, or maybe 8, where they recruited them to plant bombs in British and United States libraries and buildings and blow them up in Alexandria. And it's interesting that where they put the BOMB in the United States library was at the U.S. Information Agency, and they did these, and two of these Jewish Egyptians were put to death, and it all came out that it was they wanted it to be blamed on the Muslim Brotherhood, okay, and that they wanted to generate distrust in the Nasser administration, okay, in in um in Egypt, and basically to create instability in Egypt and they wanted to keep the UK troops at the Suez Canal there, and it imploded, and but they still used it as a reason to invade Gaza at that time in 1954. Okay, 1967 in June we get Israeli jets and ships attacking the USS Liberty. Okay, killing 34 Americans and wounding 171 others, the USS Liberty, okay, with the aim to sink the ship. Okay, they were hoping there would be no survivors so that they could again blame Egypt. Now, what are we having happen now? They're claiming there's a cyber attack on on the um, uh, the the energy, the pipeline coming out of the Baltic Sea. Now they're cutting off energy to Egypt. They're doing it all over again, this ongoing situation. Um, there's talks about the plan that they want to have the remaining who are left alive in Gaza to be marched out into Egypt, basically to totally take out Gaza, take it out as a Palestinian place, and to put in maybe a U.S. Air Force base, maybe what is the new World Order Air Force base, the UKRIsrael, the Ukraine Israel new Build Back Better Babylon base, and a little bit beachfront property while they're at it. Flatten it and kill all the information. They don't want ground forces there. Okay, they don't want ground forces in Gaza because they know that if their ground forces are there, they'll see too much. Okay, they don't want them to see too much of what's gone on there. We saw in the first strikes there in Gaza, the presidential building in Gaza fell in its own footprint, very much 9/11 Building 7 style, just falling down and never to be seen again in a thing of, just massive dust. And we're hearing that they're claiming there's white phosphorus being, deployed upon Gaza. We don't know. I wonder about this bioweapon situation because, of course, Netanyahu bragged so hugely about that with Pfizer, they had 20 years of records of everybody's biogenomes out of Israel from 100 countries of people coming from 100 different countries of Jews where they could use all of their genomes to be studied, right? Be studied for the Pfizer shots. And this could also be for, of course, biowarfare development. And I wonder, I'm just putting this forward for entertainment purposes only. Is there, could there be, for entertainment purposes only, a chance where they do release a biowarfare weapon in Jerusalem? Okay. It would give them the excuse to evacuate Jerusalem, whether it was real or unreal, evacuate Jerusalem. And we know this whole operation of Hamas was called Al-Aqsa Flood, right? It's all about defending the Al-Aqsa Mosque. We have all kinds of activity going on there with escalating tensions there at the Temple of the Mount. And we also have people like Douglas Gabriel, who I've used to do great work with there, with him and Mike McKibben on the Rad Night history, where Gabriel has said that the third temple is already built, that his connections with high up Jewish elite have told him that the temple on the mount is already um, underneath excavated, and the third temple already built there. Okay, already built there for the rollout, and this is my words, not his now, of the Luciferian preempting of the end times to preempt with the Luciferian situation. If they could get everybody out of Jerusalem, they could create what is this rising, okay, this appearance of the temple. I know it all sounds squirrely. I'm just putting out there information that I have. So back after, we look at the USS Liberty, we look at our two fleets now from the United States going, approaching the area, the Gerald Ford fleet, and now there's a second fleet going out. Well, just remember the USS Liberty. And if they could sink a fleet of the United States, that would be a huge escalation into World War III as well. And there's, 5,000 Navy men on each of those vessels. So we pray for none of that to happen 100%. We want peace. We want the end of these conflicts, but they keep continuously bringing them up. And so we go on from there. 1983, 241 U.S. Marines killed by a truck bomb in barracks in Beirut. Okay, in Beirut, in Lebanon, Islamic jihadists blamed, but basically we have Mossad being outed here as it being retaliation for U.S. Marines having stopped an Israeli tank invasion into Lebanon. This keeps going on and on with this, and Netanyahu being the mentee of Menachem Begin, the father of terror, so involved in this frankest World War III creation, okay, that we're witnessing. And so with Blinken heading to Israel tomorrow, I could go on and on with the arms long list of a laundry list of Israeli false flags out of Mossad. I think the biggest one we know about, the hugest, is the Epstein Maxwell um, bribery, sex scandal scheme to capture as many scientists and as many uh, politicians as they could for what became the biowarfare um, uh, false flags that have now rolled out into being the technology of sin, the mark of the beast, everything they're trying to do on that front. But Blinken's heading to Israel. On his way back, he'll hit Jordan.